Good morning or good afternoon, year five, depending on when you're watching this video. So, we've got to the point, it's coming to the end of the interview, they've just shown the big plans. Let me see where we were. I wanted to say lots and lots of things to the Queen and the Prime Minister, but instead I said, I think we should all help anyone who's a refugee, just like my Grandma Jo did. I heard Mum gasp as Mrs. Hall leant forward. Your Grandma Jo helped refugees too? She asked, looking interested. I nodded. In the World War, the second one. And how did she help them? Asked Mrs. Hall, gently. I looked over at Mum, who nodded at me, her eyes wide and watery. She ran away from the Nazi people, and then she helped other people run away from them too. Mrs. Hall cleared her throat and, giving me a smile, turned to Ahmet to ask him about all the things he had seen and what he had run away from. I watched as Mrs. Hemsey helped him translate what he wanted to say into English, but I liked his last answer the best, because when Mrs. Hall asked him how he felt about what he had done, he looked at us and without any help said, "I'm happy to have best friends on planet." And just like that, I knew the answer to my very last question. When we got home that night, Mum tucked me into bed and said she was proud of me, and that whenever Dad and Grandma Jo were, they were very proud of me too. In fact, I think if Grandma Jo were alive today, she'd give you a big fat kiss and tell you exactly what she told your dad when he was your age, said Mum, stroking my hair. What was that, Mum? That the entire world is full of hearts searching for a place to call home. But refugees are different, because they don't just look for a home, they look for peace too. And because of that, they possess the most special hearts anyone could ever have. Hearing about what my Grandma Jo had said to my dad made me so happy that I couldn't sleep for a really long time. Not until I heard an owl hooting from somewhere very far away. The next morning I woke up extra early and jumped out of bed. I thought Mum might still be asleep, but she was sitting at the kitchen table drinking tea, and in front of her was a newspaper. Morning, she said, smiling as her mug of tea steamed up her glasses. Thought I'd run out and get the paper. Look! She held it out to me. Staring back at me from the front page was a picture of me, Tom and Josie and Michael all sitting in a row. Tom and me were holding up the greatest idea in the world, and Josie and Michael were holding up the emergency plan. Next to it was even a bigger picture of Ahmet smiling, and above all our heads the big bold letters were the words, Ahmet, the most famous refugee boy in the world. Exclusive, the children behind the Buckingham Palace protest. Come over here, you, said Mum, opening her arms. Let's read it together, shall we? School isn't for another 2 hours, so we have lots of time. Squeezing onto Mum's chair, I read the article with her. It ran on to 2 whole pages, but I liked the bits where Ahmet was speaking the best. He spoke about his family and where they might be, and how he dreamed of being a footballer one day. But he also spoke about his sister being in the sea, and how hard it was being bullied and having horrible songs being sung about him. I hope that shuts up all the bullies too, muttered Mum angrily, when she read out that bit. Mum, look, I cried as we turned over the page to read the second half of the article. There's you! I leaned forward to see the picture better. Mum was standing next to Tom's parents and Michael's parents and Josie's parents and Ahmet's foster mum, and the words underneath said, Parents unite to fight against racism and champion refugee rights. Racists like MP Fry have no right to tear innocent families apart. Mum, I asked, after we finished reading the whole article, do you think the Queen and the Prime Minister and the border people will see this? Do you think they might try and help us now? Mum squeezed me tight. I don't know, darling, but what I do know is that by us sharing our story, lots more people will be talking about it, and that has to be a good thing. I put my hands down on the newspaper and then had another thought. And what do you think it might make people like Mr. Fry and Mr. Greggs be less scared of Ahmet? I'm not sure, said Mum, smiling, but when it comes to people, you just never know. I didn't know about Mr. Fry and Mr. Greggs, but on the way to school that day, Josie said that after my mum and dad had listened to Ahmet's story, they had told her she had been right to make friends with him, and that made me have a thought. Maybe it didn't matter if really horrible people like Mr. Fry or Mr. Greggs didn't like Ahmet. Maybe they didn't even deserve to know him, but people like Josie's mum and dad did, because they weren't horrible at all. They had just been nervous about making a new friend. Wow, year 5. We have only got, you see, 2 chapters left in the book. The next chapter is called The Queen's Message. So the Queen does reply. Woohoo! Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Over and out, Miss Davis.